why the Bitcoin code is so great, because the peers are incentivized to run, and the network is incentivized by the peers. And if you just kind of flip that into government, that would have like an extraordinarily awesome system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where my mind goes frequently, because technology's advanced a long way since we started our representative type of government,
Right.
and it seems like we could probably be more efficient with some newer technology.
I would hope so. We can't fucking vote online. What the hell? What?
We can't. Yeah, no, we can't count the votes. Like 2021. Like really?
Think about that. Here's your private key and your public key, and then you just go vote. I mean, it's already been proven you can't hack it. Maybe someone could take your private key, so you have to build a system. As long as you logged on and was like, hey, I didn't actually vote, there wouldn't not be a hard system, honestly.
If you're still with me, you realize by now that crypto is not just another internet meme. This is a group of technologies with a variety of capabilities that enable us to achieve our highest human ideals to a degree never possible before this kind of technology existed. It's revolutionary and will shake up every system that's left over from the pre-internet world. But we, the people, have to play our part. We have to participate in the new system and steer it towards kind, noble ends. That's why I made this series, because we each have a duty to leave the world better than we found it. And that starts with accepting certain truths and keeping an open mind. We, like slow-boiled frogs, enjoyed the warm water while our rights were taken one by one. News turned into propaganda, forced compliance became the new normal, all wrong speech was silenced, thought criminals were canceled, and all the while, we're told to believe it's all being done by benevolent elites out of their love for the little people, for our protection. Before crypto, there was no way to take back the rights that were stolen from you. But thanks to the work of highly motivated crypto entrepreneurs, the everyday person now has the power to wrest back their natural rights. Pay close attention to what you're about to witness. This is where the rubber meets the road in the battle for tomorrow's wealth and power. How important do you think that is to kind of returning sovereignty to individuals?
Well, I sometimes worry that we're at a point where we may not be able to get back our sovereignty, but I'm very encouraged by these new technologies. I think that censorship is never the answer. Even with speech that you don't like, I mean, people get mad about Nazi speech. It's like, this is why you need free speech rules, so you can say that doesn't make sense. We should maybe think of a different idea. And through the exchange of ideas, I mean, how can you possibly have a society without being able to freely exchange those ideas? I feel like it's a mark of civilization. In history, it's never been like, the good guys are never the censorship monsters, right? And then some people might say something like, oh, well, if you have nothing to say, and that becomes more of a privacy concern, but if you have nothing to say, then nothing to hide, then why not? I think that censorship is a big concern of mine. I think that of course brought a lot of people together with crypto. Their censorship resistance is an underlying theme, and we're absolutely going to need to have that. You can't just have censorship, because that has never historically been a good outcome for the people, right? It's in our interest to be able to be truthful with one another, and if the idea is poor, then it should fall on its merit and not because it's being censored. In fact, one might argue that through censorship, you make certain ideas even more attractive because they become forbidden, whereas they just need the light of day in order to show whether or not they're a good one or a bad one.
This was such a massive inspiration for me to do this, because I look up and I see the censorship happening on these massive social platforms, and you feel powerless to do anything about it. And yet history tells us just how harmful censorship can be, and it can lead to terrible things. And I caught a glimpse of what Web3 could be, and how it could be decentralized and take that power out of the hands of the few.
That's the thing, is like we talk to creators almost every day.
Mhm.
And what every creator has effectively done across the world is that they've built a mansion in someone else's backyard without a rental agreement. And at any time, the landlord can decide, you got to go.
Yeah.
And they can basically erase from the entire planet. Last year, when I started building this, I would tell my friends, I said, at the beginning of 2021, there's going to be an event. And what's going to happen is one of the most powerful people we know on the internet is going to be wiped off the face of the earth, and you're going to see how powerful censorship is. And then the thing happens on January 6th, and then everyone bans the president of the United States. I'm not for his politics by any means, but that's an example of what we're dealing with, is that you can basically, at the whim of a few companies, disappear off the face of the earth. Not just a regular person, the person that's running arguably the most powerful country in the world. That's a very powerful thing to think about.
Just to continue on what happened in January of this year, the platform risk was made really evident when Parler was taken down.
Yeah.
They sat on the infrastructure of a handful of tech companies and
One.
Yes.
And from what I heard, Parler didn't just have their code wasn't backed up anywhere. Everything was on AWS, and when AWS turned it off, they had to go find their code again.
So I know that there's a tremendous sense of frustration out there by the users of these existing social platforms. I mean, and they would leave Facebook if they could.
I think the big reframe to start having is that as a society, we have to start thinking of sovereignty in a much bigger way. The current state of not only just the internet, but every general system is we've allowed control to be given up for convenience.
Yeah.
And I think that we are constantly pushing for convenience in our society. We give banks all of our money because we don't want to have responsibility. We order certain things on the internet because we don't want to go purchase things. We've tried to make our lives easier with all these mechanisms, but with that, we've given up a tremendous amount of control and a tremendous amount of our own sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I think if we want to take back our human sovereignty, we have to first take back our attention, and we have to first take back our data and our usage on the internet.
One of the things that I think a lot about is how technology changes human behavior. Basically, the last 15 years or so, we've been inundated in sort of like a very weird digital world where everything is centralized, and we're in an environment that is not natural to human nature. It's just very different than what we would think of as human. So we have these digital profiles of ourselves on Facebook or something like that, and it induces a certain level of human behavior that's not natural, right? Like I know like a lot of people on Instagram feel the need to make their life look a little more glamorous, right? So they will purposefully do things that they might not even like or think is worth it, but it's a way to sort of like humble brag on Instagram or something, right? It changes incentives quite a bit. A large part of the incentives on these platforms is this idea of free, right? Like everything is free. And I'll never forget like this conversation that I had with Tae Young-ho, and he is the highest ranking North Korean official to have ever defected. And I was having a conversation with him at the Oslo Freedom Forum a few years ago. We were just talking about different stuff and, like North Korea and everything else. So I was like, hey, so how did Kim Il-sung like gain all this power? Like, how do you get to be a totalitarian state? Like, what's sort of the process? And he said, well, here's the real secret. You give things away for free. I was like, what? What do you mean by that? And he said, well, they basically made everything free. You get free healthcare, you get free education, you get free house, the government makes sure you have a job, everything else. And people loved it at first because you got free healthcare, you got free education, you got free whatever. Thing is, it wasn't really free. And he said that the price of free is compliance, and in particular, compliance to the regime. So what ended up happening is that yeah, you didn't pay for it with money, but you still pay for it with something else. And all of these people started serving the regime. You basically got owned by the regime through the free stuff, because the minute you dissent, none of that free stuff is free anymore. In fact, you can't get any of it. There's no price at which you can buy any of that. And that made me think, well, wow. And that is so
That's so
crazy.
deep.
And he's like, this is why I like market transactions. There's something sacred about market transactions. When you pay for something, both people have an obligation to each other. When you pay for something, like the company that you paid to has an obligation towards you, and you're able to pay that over. And it's a mutual thing. Whereas if it's free, it's a one-way dependence. It's a fast track to slavery, which absolutely blew my mind, right? Like it's such an amazing insight. And
Yeah, I just want to pause this and just take a moment to be grateful for the connections I have made over the years. If anybody know me and I'm on your social media, I support and I appreciate being supported. I've talked to this girl online. We've never met for years. And she put me onto this course, and I'm going to bring this course to you. What this man just said is people do not value free. You can give your stuff or your ish for free. People don't value or respect free. He said that's why he appreciates market transactions, because there's an obligation there. Pay attention, y'all. This is one part to the 9-part series that I am going to give to my people. So tap in.
And afterwards, I was reflecting on this a little bit. And I was like,
Let's rewind.
okay, where do we get stuff for free? Obligation to each other. When you get everything free, you get free healthcare, you get free education, you get free house, the government makes sure you have a job, everything else. And people loved it at first because you got free healthcare, you got free education, you got free whatever. Thing is, it wasn't really free. And he said that the price of free is compliance. And in particular,
The price
compliance
of
to the
free
regime.
is compliance.
So what ended up happening is that, yeah, you didn't pay for it with money, but you still pay for it with something else. And all of these people started serving the regime. You basically got owned by the regime through the free stuff, because the minute you dissent, none of that free stuff is free anymore. In fact, you can't get any of it. There's no price at which you can buy any of that. And that made me think, well, wow. And that is so crazy. And he's like, this is why I like market transactions. There's something sacred about market transactions. When you pay for something, both people have an obligation to each other. When you pay for something, like the company that you paid to has an obligation towards you, and you're able to pay that over. And it's a mutual thing. Whereas if it's free, it's a one-way dependence. It's a fast track to slavery, which absolutely blew my mind, right? Like it's such an amazing insight. And afterwards, I was reflecting on this a little bit. And I was like, okay, where do we get stuff for free? Well, we get our Google Gmail for free. We get Facebook for free. We get like Twitter for free. We get all these web services for free. What's the cost? We're the product, right? We're the product. Facebook doesn't care about you. They care about all the advertisers. That's their customer, because there's actually a market transaction. The advertisers actually pay Facebook, and Facebook serves them users. Like that you're the product. It's such a different way to sort of like see the world, but once you see it, you can't unsee it, because all of what is around us, like we tend to think we live in a capitalist society or whatever. I actually think we're in a very socialist one in many ways, because we are getting things for free. It's just that it's a different kind of socialism where they sell us to other people, and we are manipulated in so many ways through propaganda, images, and everything else, so that we serve the needs of those things that we get for free. This is why Google, Facebook, Twitter, and all all these things that we get for free, they're so powerful because there's an inherent dependence on those platforms, on those companies. And I'm picking on big tech, but this is true of a lot of other things, right? Like especially government, where if you do get something for free, like it causes dependence. It forces you to be compliant, and we're seeing that a lot with like these vaccine mandates and things like that, right? Where they're talking about like taking away healthcare for those that don't get vaccinated. They're talking about taking away your job if you're not vaccinated. I mean, it's going to be property next, right? Like you're not allowed to live in this neighborhood unless you're vaccinated or something like that. I mean, this is tyranny. This is what kind of happens, and this is what Bitcoin is there for, to resist this kind of stuff. Where, when you have, transactions between people, it becomes something sacred. It becomes obligations towards your fellow man. And in a sense, this is what allows people to interact with one another in civilization. It's this transactions that go back and forth, and paying for something is a good thing. Is ultimately what I'm saying.
That's amazing. That was incredible. Great insights. And it's, again, like this is why I'm creating this series, because I do believe that this is the fight for the future. We've covered a lot of ground in one episode, and we're just getting started. Crypto will disrupt every part of our society and economy, restore wealth that was confiscated through inflation, and uber powerful institutions. Neither governments nor central banks can control or stop mass adoption, but they can prevent their citizens from receiving their share of the wealth or use central bank cryptos to control their citizens. Crypto will reshape the world as we know it. It can bring about a future world where equal access to opportunity, transparency, and fairness are the norm, but only if we do our part. If you haven't done so already, share the series with someone you think should see this. And remember, at any time you can purchase the series for on-demand viewing. If it's during the world premiere event, we've got some really special extras for you when you do. But of course, there's no pressure. You can watch the entire series for free, one day at a time, as each episode is released. Thank you for sharing the series with others and your time with me today. Here's a preview of what's coming up in episode 2.
I'll go on record as saying that Bitcoin is a failed use case. It is not a good medium of exchange. It's too expensive and it takes too much time.
It is a very expensive, slow database that's very difficult to change. And the reason why it is because those are all good properties for money. You want it to be very difficult to change. You don't want this ability to defraud people because it's difficult to change and so on. Like, that's great for money because it gives you the ability to plan for the future very well, because you know what the value of the money that you're holding is going to be worth.
The financial system that we currently have is a financial system of walled gardens and permissioned environments and incumbents. And so making a name for yourself or scaling up the ladder of the traditional financial world is almost impossible these days. And that's why so many people feel marginalized and left out. You can't access some of the upside that Wall Street has access because they figured out how to put up walled gardens.
You know, I always tell people you have 48 million millionaires in the world, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. And there's about 18.5 million in circulation. If you can get your hands on half a Bitcoin or one Bitcoin, you're front running the millionaire class in the world.
At the end of the day, you know, we've been talking about eCash for 100 years with sci-fi novels and futurists. The people that, you know, were coding internet protocol in the 70s left a place in it for value transfer. You can still get a 402 error. 404 is page not found, 402 is value not found. That's been there for 45 years or something like that.
I think right now we're living through the largest adoption of technology that we will ever see in human history right now. And we can all be a part of it, and we can all...
Okay, y'all. So this is one part of a 9-part series that I am bringing to y'all motherfucking ass, excuse my language, on another platform. If I don't have your email, drop it in the comment section or DM and get it to me, however you can. This is so deep and profound Number one, he said that free, what's free, you pay for in compliance. Compliance is like being in agreement. And just listen, this is gonna be so good. I'm gonna go shower, take a break, come back, and I'm gonna hit part 2. But all this is for my email subscribers. I have a class starting on Monday. If you have not signed up, I don't care who you are. If you have not started to transition some part of your money into digital, this man said that Ethereum hit for 2 trillion out of the market last year. The market is 6.6 trillion. So if they took 2 from that, can you imagine what's going to happen this year? This is my thing. You can be stuck where you're going to be stuck, but you can't afford to miss out. The reason why all the digital currencies are right now in downtrend is because corporations want to come in on a lower price. So what they do is pull the price all the way down, and then it goes to where it's going. And if you are hearing or listening to anybody that's telling you, oh, it's crashing, they are not investors. The market does not crash. It goes through ups and downs. And mostly when it's a down, the quote for the market is buy low, sell high. Okay? Again, a famous quote for the market is to buy low and sell high. Anybody telling you that this is a crash, oh, see, they don't invest, clearly. This is a 9-part series. Like I said, I'm finna go into part 2. I ain't finna waste a whole lot of time. I'm finna to go shower. And then I'm gonna come back in and get the rest of this knowledge. I have until tomorrow night, midnight, to get all 9 parts in. And then they're gonna close it off. And it's going to go for sale. And so this was their little give back to me. And I'm gonna give it back to you. This will be available to anybody that signed up for the class that starts on Monday. This will be the part 2. And I will give you further details in the class on Monday night. I'm so excited. This fell in my lap right before my class started. And this is my season. I can feel it. I'm trying to contain it. Let me calm down. But yeah. And so, y'all heard it, man. Let's play the end. I'm going to get on out of here.
And all invest in it in the blockchain. I'm getting excited just talking about this. I think anybody who's even looking at this space or watching content about this space is in an incredible space right now to invest in it.
And there's another thing that I always told myself. That is that if I find something as revolutionary as the internet, at some point in my life, I will dedicate my life to it. And when I saw Ethereum, I thought, oh, this is it. Wow, this is it. This is as big as the internet, maybe bigger. So this is what I'm going to do.
All right. Yeah, I feel so good. I miss the Bitcoin craze. I still use Bitcoin to trade. You have to have Bitcoin to trade, okay? But I didn't miss the Ethereum trade. And so grateful. So grateful. All right, y'all. Peace and power, and I'll see you in a few.